Well, PIX11 has a long, storied history here in New York City. Much of it due to the journalists that have come through our doors and come into your homes over the years.
Yeah, well, tonight we're honoring one of them. Our own Marvin Scott is celebrating a milestone: 40 years as a reporter and anchor with PIX11, 4 decades of covering some of the most important news for our region and the world. Take a look. When we say New York's very own, Marvin Scott is a journalist who defines those words.
I'm Marvin Scott at the state capitol in Albany. At the White House, I'm Marvin Scott in Washington. Marvin Scott reporting from Israel.
For 40 years, Marvin has been a reporter at PIX11 News. He's covered more than 15,000 stories.
I had a dream when I was a teenager growing up in the Bronx. I wanted to be a news reporter, and I followed the path. I never gave up on it. Despite the downfalls, I picked myself up and continued, and from starting off at a small television station in Charleston, West Virginia, worked my way back home to New York.
Marvin started his career 60 years ago in the same building PIX11 studios are located in today. He was a teenager selling a photo of a fire in the Bronx to the Daily News.
There was a raging inferno in my Bronx neighborhood. I took a photograph of it, and the Daily News said, "Hey kid, bring it in." So I brought it to the same building where I now work. They paid me $25.
And that was just the beginning. An 11-time Emmy winner and inductee into the New York State Broadcasters Hall of Fame.
The very best to marvelous Marvin. New York would not be the same without you. Certainly Channel 11 wouldn't be the same. This couldn't be more deserving.
Going back to the beginning of my career with Dr. Martin Luther King or John F. Kennedy at a primary in West Virginia, or sitting in Israel with Golda Meir, and years later in Beirut with Yasser Arafat, interviewing presidents, sitting with Jimmy Carter and Gerald Ford, or covering Richard Nixon in the 1968 campaign. You can say I've been an eyewitness to history for the past 6 decades.
But it's his 5 visits to Iraq and Afghanistan to be with local soldiers at Christmas that have touched him deeply.
We brought them a taste of New York. Bagels, hot dogs, cheesecake, but even better than that, we hooked them up live to talk to their families back here in the city. And there was no better reality television than that. And the greatest reward was a soldier putting his hand in mine and saying, "Thank you, you made a difference for our Christmas."
3 years ago, Marvin published a book, As I Saw It, A Reporter's Intrepid Journey. Marvin reflecting on the stories that have stuck with him personally.
I capture some of the stories, the more iconic stories I've covered, able to share in more words than I'm allowed to share in the 2 minutes I'm giving for a broadcast, and some of the insight behind the stories.
With a street sign named after him, this kid from the Bronx is a storyteller who continues to share the stories that shape our city and our lives.
Reporting from the Democratic National Convention, I'm Marvin Scott. Hello, everyone, and welcome aboard the USS Intrepid. I'm Marvin Scott with a Coast Guard boarding team. He's the king of comedy, or as Robin Williams calls him, the maestro.
Yeah, that was one of the great moments of my life.
Let me finish my intro. Yeah?
I'm sorry. Okay. Go ahead, Marvin.
Thank you.
Thank you for
I know your voice from television, and it's good to meet you.
Channel 11. Reporting live from Hyannisport, I'm Marvin Scott.
I love that spirit.
How you doing, Ringo? Fine, thanks, fine. How's your trip? Well, I've enjoyed all of it up to now.
Jimmy Carter, thank you very much for being our guest. In the newsroom, I'm Marvin Scott, PIX11 News. In Brooklyn Heights, I'm Marvin Scott, PIX11 News.
And speaking of Marvin Scott, he's joining us from his home in New Jersey. Marvin, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you, Tamsin. I just felt like I saw my life pass in front of me.
Well, certainly a pretty incredible one. And, you know, we've talked about this before, but Marvin, every time he covers a story, it doesn't matter what the story is, whether it's interviewing a president or, you know, he's running around doing something fun. He brings every bit of, you know, of his spirit to it.
Look, Marvin, if there was no COVID, you would be here with us. There would be hugs. There would be, you know, maybe champagne or something like that. We can't do it. But what's kind of cool is that because you're at home, you can kind of show us what you've been keeping for all these years.
Well, let me show you, because I did bring home these books. And you know what these books are? There are 40 of them. And they're annual calendars. And I can tell you every story I have covered since that first day I walked into the newsroom in 1980 until now. First one here on the top, I can tell you this date, November 19, 1998, on this very day, I was covering the story of former Governor Eliot Spitzer declaring victory in the New York State Attorney General race. So it's easy to find. When I'm looking for vintage material, as you found in those video clips, I have them all in my books here, and there are some incredible interviews, you know, going from the early on to interviewing Martin Luther King to the interview with Sophia Loren. That was a wow moment, to playing straight man in front of Jerry Lewis, talking to Golda Meir in Israel and Yasser Arafat in Beirut. It continues to be an incredible ride, and I feel like I've been on the front lines of history the last 60 years, and it's just wonderful. And every day, as you pointed out, when I go out to a story each day, it's a fresh approach. It's a new story, a new day, and I tell it from the beginning, and I tell it the way I've always told it, correctly, straight, with all the integrity I can have in me.
Well, that is why we love you. That's why you're New York's very own, and that's why, you know, we enjoy having you every single day here. And congratulations, Marvin. So happy to be able to talk to you about it, and always love to hear your stories.
Thank you. Good to be with you, even if it's virtually. I'd love to be with you in the studio, but it's good to be with you even this way.
Well, this is our virtual kiss.
There you go. Congrats once again.
Later.
And thank all the viewers who have had their trust in me all these years. I thank them as well.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Marvin.
All right.
Thank you.